1948, in the Camp David Accords, Egypt formally recognized the nation of Israel. It became the first Arab nation to recognize Israel as a nation. In return, Israel agreed to withdraw troops from the Sinai Peninsula and give the Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt. They actually defeated Egypt in one of the wars. I believe it was the 6-Day War. And they had gained a lot of land, including Gaza and the Sinai Peninsula. Egypt agreed to recognize them. Israel agreed to get troops out of the Sinai. And to this day, we still give both Egypt and Israel a considerable amount of money for keeping the peace with this Camp David Accords. We just looked at his greatest accomplishment. This probably was his worst, one of the worst things that happens in his tenure in office, and that's the Iran hostage crisis. So, Iran was controlled by the Shah, which is the king. And the Shah actually was kind of like our friend. And he had let us have oil from Iran. He was our friend. In the 1970s, many Iranians did not like the Shah. There was more growing opposition to the Shah, and many people in Iran wanted to become more. They believed that it was too secular. They wanted to, become a more fundamentalist state, a state that ran with the use of the Quran. And so, in 1979, the Shah leaves Iran. He has cancer. He leaves Iran and he flees. He actually flees here to the United States. And the Ayatollah, which is like saying he's the leader of their religion. The Ayatollah, this one was Khamenei. He took control of Iran. And when he took control of Iran, and the Shah was able to come to the United States, many Iranians got really angry. And they actually took control of our embassy. And they took 66 American hostages. It says 52 there, but it's actually 66. Some of them were let go. When they took control of these hostages, Carter would not negotiate with what he called terrorists. And the hostages stayed in Iran for over a year, actually 444 days. His failure to win the release of these hostages and the bad domestic policy here in the United States, it actually, Americans saw this as a weakness for Carter. And in the 1980 elections, he will lose to Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan becomes president, the hostages are released. And we will talk about the Iran Contra scandal next chapter, which was a huge scandal for the Reagan office. And this set here is actually a book or cartoon that shows the Iran Contra scandal. And again, we will talk about that later on. Culturally wise, in the 1970s, we're going to have a demographic shift. More and more Americans are going to move to the Sun Belt, as we talked before. The Sun Belt is the area in the United States in the South and the West. So more and more Americans are going to be moving down to warmer climates. Another demographic pattern that continues in the 70s is Americans moving to suburbs. Divorce will increase. Today, 50% of marriages end in divorce. The divorce rate will increase in the 1970s. More and more children would be born out of wedlock in the 1970s as well. Many Americans feel that our values are eroding. Some of these Americans are going to go to the airwaves in the form of televangelists. The two biggest televangelists that we talk about or that we see in this time period, it's going to be Jerry Falwell. We'll talk more about Jerry. He was huge in the 1980s. And then we still have Billy Graham. And these guys are going to go around the country, and they're also going to be televangelists, and they're going to be trying to tell Americans that we need to get away from this violence of the 60s, of the 70s. These hippies, these liberals, they're eroding our country. They're making our country worse. And we need to go back to our conservative principles, our conservative values. This conservative movement, which again was started by Jerry Falwell and Billy Graham and other preachers, will propel Ronald Reagan into the White House, and it will propel Republican leadership into the White House until 1992, when Bill Clinton is elected president. And those are all the notes. Again, if you do not understand something, please post under these notes so that the rest of your classmates, if they need to ask questions, they will know that the question hasn't already been asked. All right, thanks, guys.